Again, welcome to the GreenSQL webinar. My name is Yoav and I'm the Director of Professional Services. And during this presentation, we will go through the product demonstration. We'll talk about the product capabilities and we'll do a demo of everything we discussed. And at the end of it, I will leave some time for questions. So feel free to send me questions during the webinar, and I'll answer them at the end of the webinar. No problem. All right. Few words about our company. First of all, this is our mission that you see here. We are very proud that our product is very easy to use, very easy to implement. We offered it in affordable prices. And a few words about the company. We started as an open source project in early 2006 and become commercial around 2009. Since then, we have we have lots of downloads from all over the world. Just recently, we were named by Gartner as a cool vendor in security and been included in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for data masking. We are financially backed up by a few venture capitals, and you can see some of them on the bottom of the screen. Here's a list of few of our customers. You can see that they're coming from different verticals, from government, gaming, technology, but we also have customers from the healthcare industry, from the finance industry. So you have lots of examples and lots of knowledge from different companies in different industries. It comes with different regulations and different requirements. And I'll give you a few of those examples during this presentation. About the customer concern, I guess that each one of you are familiar with his own environment or any other environment from his past companies. But you know, database, we have several databases on every company. There are companies with 1, 2 databases, and we have companies that have thousands of databases from different types and for different users. And actually, there are lots of people accessing the database, if it's through automated connections or by user connections. And there can be many services connecting to the database, from backup, reporting, replications, integrations, ETLs. But maybe the main concern is also the user connection, that there are DBAs, developers, QA, application users, outsource employees that come to do some working on their application in your company. And in order to do so, they have to connect to the database so they can be exposed to sensitive information. Another common concern is that developers or DBAs, if they want to make some tests, they just copy or back up the database and just restore it or create a new copy of the database in their testing environment or even in their own desktop. So these were a few examples of the main concerns. Most of them are related to compliance and regulation. And we'll go through the compliance and regulation, how we can help you to comply with the regulations. And you know, it's not getting any better, and this list includes a few examples of the famous attacks that have been last year, and even some from this year. Maybe the famous one is Target, that 40 million customer credit cards have been stolen from their database. About compliance requirements, maybe the top priority or the first thing that you will be required is to make sure that you audit any access to your database, and any personal information access should be audited. For example, if someone accesses a credit card number or a personal ID number, national ID number, this information have to be audited, and you will have to know who accessed this data, who tried to access this data. Even if he failed, you have to know who accessed the databases. So we give you the option to track all the success logins, the failed logins. If someone changed sensitive information, we will be able to give you an audit event that will show you what was the data before the change and after the change, and of course, who was the user who did it, from what IP address and what application you used. I will show you everything. I will demonstrate everything, and this is what we offer. We offer the database security, database activity monitoring, and dynamic data masking. I'll start with how the product works, and the product works as a reverse proxy. Means that everything will go through our proxy. The application will direct the traffic to the GreenSQL proxy, and GreenSQL will connect to the database server. GreenSQL is a software that can be installed on any operating system. It can be on Windows or Linux. The GreenSQL can be installed everywhere, but our best practice is to install it on a dedicated server, and that way you will be able to secure more than one database server, and of course get the best performance. And now we'll go to database security. Now I just want to remind you all that if you have any questions, just write them down, and I'll answer all of your questions before we end this session. Database security contains three main features. The first one is SQL injections. GreenSQL have the capability to stop and detect SQL injection attacks using two mechanisms. The first one is a heuristic engine, and the second is we have a bank of known signatures. So using those two mechanisms, we can detect most of the SQL injection attacks in very high percentages. And we keep updating our bank of known signatures. And just to let you know, in case that, and it happens from time to time, that we detect SQL injection attempts coming from the application, and then our customers say that this is a query that is part of the application. Now, if they have the option to modify the query and fix it so it won't be a SQL injection or won't be a suspicious query, so they can do that. But sometimes they can't because this is not their application. So what we offer then is we can add it to a whitelist and make sure that anyone who will run this query will be a trusted user or will come from a trusted source. For example, this query can be executed only from the application source IP, only by this specific application, and only when it uses the application database user. We can also limit it so it will be affected only on specific time frames. And this is what we can do with the SQL injection. Next feature is database firewall that provides you the option to create a whitelist or a blacklist of queries. For example, if I have an application and I want to learn all the traffic being executed through the proxy from this application, I can put the system on learning mode, and then after a few days or a week, I can add all those queries to a query group and decide that this is a whitelist, and from this moment only those queries will be allowed, and anyone who will try to execute a different query will be blocked. Another example we have actually for the finance industry, that we have one customer that his application provide an option to run a report, to generate a report, and he want to make sure that specific users won't be able to run this report. So what we did in that case, we just learned all the queries related to this report and created a query group and turned it into a blacklist. And this blacklist affects only specific users, so only the privileged users can access this, can generate this report, but some users just can't and being blocked. Third feature is separation of duties. that provide you the option to decide who will have access to what information in your database and what privilege you would like to provide. For example, if I have an application and I want to make sure that there will be no administrative commands being executed by the application. For example, it doesn't make sense that the application will create a new user, a new database user. It doesn't make sense that the application will run a backup of the database or encrypt the database. So we can make sure that any administrative command can be executed by the application or by specific source IPs or database users. Another thing we can do is we can make sure that specific users or source IPs or application will be able to access a specific table, but they will be able just to view the data and won't be able to do anything else. They won't be able to modify the data or delete the database, or the content of the table. So this is what we can do in the separation of duties. Now we can do it on a proxy level, means that all the instance can be protected. We can go to a database resolution and to a table resolution. This is if you use the table base. If you use the query groups, you can even go to a query level. So this is an example of a database security traffic log, where you can see the rule ID that affected that created this event. You can see the pattern of the query and some session details with important information like the log on and log off time, the database he used, the username, and of course his IP and application. Next feature is auditing, and the database activity monitoring, or some people call it auditing, provides you the option to audit your sensitive information, and there are two levels. The first one is to audit any administrative command. So anyone who will try to modify the user privileges, create a backup, add another database, drop databases, encrypt databases, things like that will be audited, so you'll know who executed those commands, and you'll know what they did. Second is data access. So anyone who will try to access sensitive information, you will know about it in real time, or you can get email alerts that will give you a summary of all the people who access the database or sensitive information in the specific time frames that you decide. Another cool feature we have called advanced auditing that provides you the option to see what was the data before and after every change. For example, if I execute this query and I change the email address, so you can see what was the previous data and what is the current data after executing this query, and how many rows has been affected by this change. And of course, inside the session details, this is similar to what you saw before. You can create audit rules for administrative commands or for data access, and to audit only specific source IPs, specific database users, and specific application, and also for what type of commands. For example, for view commands, modifications, delete. I will show you everything later, including the part when you can audit the logins part. This feature is very crucial for compliance. All the regulations require some level of auditing, and we provide you this option and this capability. We can save all the audit events in our database, but we also provide an option to export all our audit events to an external database, or to connect to any SIM system, syslog server, if you want to push it to any other system that you want. Next feature is dynamic data masking, that provides you the option to hide sensitive information. And here I wrote a few examples for sensitive information, but it can be basically everything, from credit cards to medical information, PII. The most important thing to understand here is that we do not change the real data stored in the database. We just mask it dynamically. So For example, a privileged user will run a query and will get the real result, while unprivileged user will run the same query and he will get the masked data like you see in the screenshot attached. So even if they run the same query on the same time, they will get totally different results. Before we talk about the value and before I summarize this presentation, I would like to go to the demo itself and show you how it looks and how easy it is. And I will just log into the system. Okay, so this is the dashboard of the GreenSQL. By the way, in our next version, there's a new dashboard, and if you wait to the end of the session, I will even show it to you so you guys will be able to see how it looks. So the first thing you have to do after the installation is to create a proxy and an instance. I already did that just to save us some time, but actually there's a quick connect or wizard that you just have to set up a name, just a logical name for you for the connection. For example, it can be MySQL Server, and then I can choose if it's SQL Server or MySQL. These are the databases that we support now. We also support PerconaDB, MariaDB, SQL Azure, Amazon RDS, but these are the database platforms that we, most of them included in MySQL and SQL Server. Of course, the host IP, and I have the option to choose if I want to use port or to enter the instance name. The database that I would like to connect is just for the test, and then I enter the username and password and create a new proxy and test the connection. So right now I have an up and running instance and a proxy which its status is active, and I'll start with the database security. These are the default rules that comes with the database security. The first one is just a whitelist that right now it's empty, no queries inside. Second rule is a SQL injection. Now, in order to create a rule for SQL injection, it's just a checkbox here. So if you want to make sure that you'll be protected from SQL injection, it's just one click away from you. Now, I want to make it easy for you, so I will delete everything in this and in my policy. So now I have only one rule, which is allowing any query from any source to be executed. By the way, if I will delete this rule, the system rule is to block everything. So right now, if I want to connect through the GreenSQL proxy, and in order to do it, I'm using a SQL Server Management Studio. So I will now connect through the GreenSQL proxy, which is on this port, but I can set it up on any port that I want. If you're using 1433, you can choose any port that you want. And I will connect through the proxy, and now I can see the database list, and I can go and see the tables list, and actually I can run any query that I want. And I get the same results. Everything goes through our proxy. Now let's play with it a little bit, and I would like to show you how do I block and access to a specific table. So for example, I will choose database firewall. I will choose the AdventureWorks database, and I will decide to do query groups, table based. And now I have the option to choose the table that I want to block the access to. So I will go to the database, I'll go to person and address, and this is the table that I want to block. So anyone who will try to access this database will be blocked, and I want to block everything. I can also decide what will be the blocking action. So for example, I can return an empty result set, I can close the SQL connection, or I can generate a SQL error. So let's be gentle and I'll just return an empty result set. I would like to get some logging for it. By the way, here, once I configure an SMTP server, I can send alert every time there's an event from this rule. And if I want to send to the syslog server, I have to configure a syslog server and then I can send it to my syslog. On the left side, I can decide if this rule will be affecting any source IPs or just one source IP. Same for users, same for applications. So let's say that I want to make sure that test user won't be able to access this table. So I will create this rule. I will just have to make sure that I'm changing the order of the rules. And right now my policy says that the test user can't access the AdventureWorks person address table. All other users can do everything they want. So right now I'm connected using the test user. So if I will run this query, I will get an empty result set. But if I will create a new connection, but this time I will use the SA, and I will try to run the same query, the same exact query. It was person address, select top 1000, and now I can see all the results. Now let's do another example. I will drop this rule, or I'll just modify it. Let's say that I want to learn now everything I'm doing using the test user and allow it to all the other users. Let's do it from the SA first. I can create a query group. I can use the default whitelist that I have here, or I can create my new group. I will use this one, and I can set up a learning duration from 1 hour to unlimited time. I'll put it as unlimited now. So I want to learn all the queries that the SA is executing just from this source IP. And this will be the first rule. And just to make it better, I will just disconnect from everything I'm running. And I will create a new connection using the SA. And I will just go and travel inside my database, and I will run some queries just to show you the commands that I'm executing. This should be enough for now. And if I go to my query groups right now, you will see that inside my group there will be lots of queries being learned. So what I can do right now is I can make sure that anyone who will try to execute those commands will be blocked. So I can change it to any user from any source. This time it won't be a learning wall, it will be a database firewall. Query groups. So anyone who will try to run any query that exists in this group will be blocked, and I would like to generate a SQL error. And the other rule will allow any queries just to the SA user. So actually my policy right now will allow everything. Sorry, I did something wrong here. It will be for everyone. And here I will say that I want to make sure that the test user can't run the commands that I executed before that have been stored in this query group. So right now my policy said that test user won't have the access to execute the queries in this query group, but the SA or any other user will be able to run anything they want. So if I will open my Management Studio right now, and I'll create a new connection, this time by the test user, and I'll go to AdventureWorks table. already been blocked because the SA got some things running in background that since it's SA, it can run more queries that haven't been learned. But actually, I can learn specific reports, or as I told you, the example that I gave you before, and I can put it in, turn it into a whitelist or a blacklist. Before we continue with the presentation, I would like to show you something called risk profile. This is a very interesting feature, very relevant for most of our customers. You can create a profile, for example, for my application, which use MS SQL. We have a simple mode where you can decide if any view objects, modify objects will be allowed, blocked, or you can do a custom behavior and of course decide what will be the logging. But we also have an advanced mode that includes all the SQL Server commands. So if you will go, for example, to create database object, or maybe we'll go to modify database object, here you have a list of all commands. So something like alter database owner or alter master key password. I can make sure that those commands will be blocked, and we can make sure that only specific users, only privileged users will have the access to this to run those commands. All right, so I'll go back now to the demo, and we'll go to activity monitoring. This is the next feature that I would like to show you. Let's say that I want to audit any access to my database. So here we have login events, and I can audit any success login, logout, fail logins, or database change. So if I will choose my proxy right now, and I will audit everything from this source, which is my source IP. So right now there are no events in my list, but if I'll go now and let me close everything and reconnect. So I will use the test user, it doesn't matter. Oh, never mind, the SA. So right now I'm logged in into the database. So if I go back to the GreenSQL, you can see some of the events. Sorry. Because the default database of the SA is master, once I change it to AdventureWorks, you can see that the database has been changed. You can see that I logged out from the SA user and the test user, and I logged in as an SA. So this was an example for the login event. This is very important for regulations. Another auditing capabilities we have is for procedures. If you want to make sure that you audit any specific stored procedures, you can go to the database and search for your stored procedures, and anyone who will try to execute those stored procedures will be audited. Same for administrative. If you want to audit any administrative access, you can also enable the advanced activity monitoring, so you'll know for every modification what was the data before the change and after the change. There are different groups that you can enable. For example, schema changes, privileges, data security, replications. You can run an audit rule on specific source IP, specific database user, or even a group of source IPs and database users, and of course application. I will show you an example of a table-based. I will go and select, and here it's not only table level, it's also a column level. So I will go to sales, credit card, and I want to audit actually all the columns in this table. I want to know about anyone who's actually doing anything on this table, and I also want the advanced activity monitoring. So I will create this rule, And I will go back to the Management Studio and let me run a new query. So I'll do a simple one. Alright, so here's the information from this table, and if I go to my audit events, the one on the top will be the event that I just, the query that I just executed, this one, and you can see some session details. You can see that I'm still logged in, so log off time is not available. And you can see my IP address, the application, everything is here inside the event. Now, if I go back and I would like to change one of the records, so I will update sales credit card, and I'll set the expiration month to be I don't know, July, for this one, for the first row. So this will be the credit card ID equals to 1. I will run this command, and you can see that one row has been affected. If I go to the GreenSQL, you'll see an update, and you can see what was the previous data and what is the current data, and of course the full query, how many rows has been affected, and of course session details. So this was an example for advanced auditing. If you choose to export all the audit events to an external database, then you can view them by yourself and manage them in your own database. You can also manage the archive of all the files of all the audit events in our system. You can even schedule a rotation according to your needs. It can be by the number of log files that you want to save, and maximum file size for each file. And of course, you can schedule a rotation. It can be daily, weekly, or monthly. Next feature is dynamic data masking. And dynamic data masking, I think that the table that we choose before can serve us very good for this example, because right now in this table I can see the card number, the credit card number, which is very sensitive information. So I'll go to the GreenSQL and I will create a dynamic data masking rule. I will choose the AdventureWorks, and I'll go to sales, credit card, and I'll mask the card number. Now we have several masking functions. The basic one is to mask all or to return an empty result, but we also have different masking functions for different uses. For example, for credit card, we can mask everything and just keep the last 4 digits. There are also last 3 masking, last 4, email masking. We can keep first and last 1 or 2 characters, mask the digits, just keep the domain, return a fixed string. And also it's very easy for us, if there's a need for a unique or specific function that you want to use, it's very easy for us to edit and provide you the option to use your own function where you can decide what will be the behavior. Right now I will choose a credit card masking, and I will replace all the numbers with X's at the moment. I can mask the data for all users or just to a specific one. Let's say that I want to mask the data for anyone who's accessing from my desktop, which this is my IP. So I created the rule, and now I'll go back to the Management Studio. I'm connected from this IP that should be masked, and I executed this query, and now you can see that all the card number is being masked, and you can see just the last 4 digits. Now, this is because I'm connected through the GreenSQL proxy using this port. If I will create a new connection, but this time I will go directly to the database, and this is the database port number. So this is a direct connection to the database, and I will run a new query. Actually, I can copy because it's the same database. Here I can see the real data. Means that you see that the data is being masked dynamically. We don't change the data. There's no need to change anything in the application side or the database side. We don't use any triggers. We don't add anything to your database. We're not affecting your data. It's just being masked dynamically on the way through our proxy. Now, you saw it took me about a minute to create an audit rule and a masking rule, and this is very important because our tool is being managed by DBAs, by security, by the IT team. There's no need for previous knowledge. You don't need to know anything about queries, about databases or network. You just have to decide what you want to do with the product. If you want to use the security, if you want to use the auditing, if you want to use the masking. And we also have a user guide that will guide you through everything you want to do in the product. Beside of the regular use, we also have a capability of business continuity. Means that if you configure a proxy, and right now I have only one instance, but let's say that I have a replication. So I will create another instance called replicated DB, which is SQL Server. Let's say that okay, so I have two databases. One of them is the SQL Server and the other one is the replicated database. Right now it's the same one, but just for the example. I can go to my proxy and decide that I want to create a fallback. Means that if the primary instance, which is my SQL Server, if it's not available, I can direct all the traffic to my replicated database. Now it can happen after 2 retries, 5, 10, or 20, and then we'll keep the business continuity. So this is one way to handle with crisis in your database. Now about the GreenSQL continuity, there are two ways. The first one is we have a high availability solution where you can configure the system with master and slave. So in case of a failure, the GreenSQL detects it automatically and just failovers to the slave machine just to keep business continuity. It shares the same configuration, same IP address, no need to change anything in the application or the database. Another thing you can do is we have a bypass mode, so in case you feel that there's a problem with the GreenSQL or something in your traffic, you can always put the GreenSQL in a bypass mode, and then we just act as a dummy proxy and transfer all the data, all the traffic, all the requests coming to our server. We just forward it as is to the database server without any rules or policy configured in the system. We pretty much covered everything in our product. Of course, in the system, you can see some information about the license, about the configuration. You can decide your SMTP server and statistics refresh interval. You can create users inside the GreenSQL. Of course, you can create your own profile. So administrators, read-only, if you want to make sure that someone else in your company will have to access and change some things that are relevant only for auditing and won't be able to touch the security. You can do everything you want in our product. For example, every option in the product available here to decide if the specific profile have access or doesn't have access to run a command or enable a feature. This is about the high availability, and if there is any problem, you can always easily go to support, generate a compact package or a full package, generate it. It will create an encrypted file that you just have to attach it when you open a ticket in our system, just for quick support and better service. About the logs, and I showed you an example in my presentation, but here how it looks in real time, where you can see the pattern of the query, you can see what rule created this event, what was the action, and of course session details. Before we go to questions, I just want to show you, because we are very close to release our new version, and since we did lots of improvements in the dashboard, I would like to show it to you. So I will just log into a different machine that I have that is running the new version. So 1 second. Okay. So this is our new dashboard, where we added performance, so you can see the memory usage, which is very high in this case. I guess someone is running some commands on it right now. And the CPU, you can see the top SQL injection patterns and how many times they've been executed, and if they are part of a specific query group. There's a system activity, so you can see how many queries has been allowed versus blocked. Auditing, you can see auditing versus administrative audit, masking rules, SQL injection. This is another thing we added, where you can see the topology, means the proxies you configured, the instances, and you can see that right now everything is active, everything is up and running. And if GreenSQL detects that no one is connected, no application is connected to the proxies, you will see that the proxy is not in use. And if the instance can connect to the database, you will also see here the status. And if you put the system on bypass, of course, you will see that it's not going through the GreenSQL. So this is something that will be in our next release. Another thing we have here is the option to see the top activity. You can see the top users, you can see the top IP addresses, the top applications, and your top rules. How many transactions went through this rule. If I choose a user, you can see how many transactions being executed by this user. In the application, again, how many transactions. So this is our new version, new dashboard, sorry. And we're very excited because it will help you with managing our product. All right, I'll go back to and to summarize what we saw. So basically, our product provided the option to prevent unauthorized access to your database. We can detect and block SQL injection attacks using the auditing, which is very important for compliance. You can monitor, audit, and alert any database activity from administrative to database data access and to logins audit. And the last feature was the dynamic data masking, that I showed you how you can hide sensitive information from unauthorized personnel without changing the real data stored in the database. All right, so we finished with the presentation and the demo. As I promised, we'll now have some time for Q&A. And I have some questions in my list, so I'll go one by one. Feel free to add any other questions. I have a question about from Francie. How is SQL injection attacks database updated? Asking if we offer some update websites. All right, so this is how it works. we update our signatures on every release, every patch, and every major release. So it means that you will get an update every once a quarter at least. If there is an important update, we send a file to all our customers, a file that includes all the known signatures. It's kind of a patch. You just have to run this file on the system, and it just push all the new relevant and important signatures to our embedded database, which is part of our product. Next feature is, should user manually update SQL injection attack database, or is this update automatically? Well, this is it's actually the same answer for the last question. I have another question from Glenn. What about performance? Performance hits? Well, it really depends on the traffic and the performance on a database server itself. Means how many transactions per second in average, the average concurrent connections, what features you are using in GreenSQL. For example, if you will use all the features in GreenSQL with average performance, average number of transactions per second and connections, usually the latency is between 1 to 5%. But again, it also depends on the hardware that is running GreenSQL, and most of our customers are using virtual environments. So in case that they feel that they passed the 5%, if they want to make sure it will be below that, you just have to add more memory or more CPU power, and then you just improve the performance. Any other questions? All right, I will stay connected to the webinar, and if you guys have any questions, I will be here for the next 10 minutes. For all of you that stayed and joined this webinar, I would like to personally thank you, and hope that it was useful for you. Next step, you can schedule a one-on-one meeting with one of our engineers. You can contact me personally, or just request a demo from our sales team. You got both email addresses in front of you. So again, thank you for joining this session, and see you in our next webinar. Have a great day. I'm here for the next 10 minutes for more questions. Thank you, Jim.